Welcome to another Sweet Thursday. Hello family, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Vicki and you're with Grammy in the Kitchen. So we're going to make two recipes today. One recipe we're going to make today is going to be pumpkin pie from the pumpkin that we prepared on the last video. The second video we're going to make is something a little different, and it's not a sweet, but we're also going to be using pumpkin. So let's go ahead and make pasta dough. We're going to be making a pumpkin ravioli in a brown butter sauce. I don't know about you, but that sounds delicious. Then we're going to make a pumpkin pie. So in the bowl, I'm just going to be making my normal pasta. We're going to put 2 cups of flour, a good pinch of salt. Blend that in together. Make a well in the center, a little hole, and we're going to add 2 eggs. And about a tablespoon of olive oil. We're going to whisk the eggs and slowly incorporate that flour. And we're only going to add enough water to get a nice consistent dough ball. It's time to get in there with our hands. Add a little bit of water, just like a teaspoon at a time. Now we're going to be working on our surface. Just putting everything on the countertop and the bench scraper. We're just going to fold that in and only adding water as we need it. So a little bit more water. And if it's too wet, just add flour. If it's too dry, add water. Just trying to get this all incorporated and make a nice smooth dough. It's a little too dry. Add just a teeny bit of water. Still a little stiff. Right, there we go. It's coming together now. It's a little shaggy, but that's okay. Now this process is called laminating. When you press it out and then fold it on itself, that'll give you a nice smooth dough. So we're not really kneading it, we're just folding it. Flatten it out, folding it. Flatten it out, folding it. That looks good. I want to cover it with plastic wrap. And we're going to let it sit right here on the countertop and just let it rest. Let that gluten relax so when we roll it out, it doesn't try to shrink up and go back to its former self. We want it to be very relaxed so that when we roll it, it won't try to shrink up. And while we have all the ingredients out, we're going to go ahead and make our pie crust for the pumpkin pie. So I'm just going to use the same bowl. And I'm going to grate a stick of butter. We're going to put 1 1/3 cups of flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and I have some cold water I had in the refrigerator. We're going to make sure we coat that butter with the flour so they don't lump together. Perfect. And we're just going to add a tablespoon of water at a time. It's time to get in there with our fingers. And when I'm making a sweet dessert with pie crust, I do like to add just a little bit of sugar. So we have a teaspoon of sugar. Should have put that in there with the salt, but that's okay. All right, we just want to get everything incorporate. Let's go ahead and dump it on our workstation. We want the butter to do its job and not rely on water. So the less water, the better. So we're just going to try to knead in all of this butter flour mixture until it comes together. All right, it's coming together beautiful. All right, that is perfect. Let's make a disc. When you get a nice round disc, it makes it a whole lot easier when you're ready to roll it out. And I'm going to wrap that up in plastic wrap. And this is going to go into the refrigerator until we pick up our milk for this week. And we can make some sweetened condensed milk so we can make that pumpkin pie. So before you got here this morning, I took the milk that I had in the refrigerator, which was 3/4 of a gallon. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cups. And I decided to make mozzarella. I'll insert that video right here. So I woke up this morning and I decided to make some mozzarella. So this is just milk, citric acid, heated up to 100 degrees. Then I added some rennet, stir that in until the curds started separating. Let it sit on the stove with the heat off for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, we went in here and gathered all the curds, put them together, add a half a teaspoon of salt. I started off with 3 quarts of milk. Because it's almost time for me to go pick up milk again, and I'm not going to have wasted milk. I have the burner back on a medium heat, and we're just doing our stretch and pulls. And in between the stretch and pulls, we're going to put it back in that warm way. And that is it. We're done. So we have some fresh mozzarella. We'll put that in a bowl. And I'm going to add some whey. Set this aside until it cools off. I still have the burner on. I want to heat this whey up to 200 degrees. I'm constantly stirring it just so it doesn't scorch on the bottom. We're just keeping it moved so it heats up evenly. We do not want to bring this to a boil. And as it heats up, it'll go from that yellow-green whey color to more of a white color, and that's what we're looking for, because we are making ricotta, which translate twice cook. We cooked it once to make the mozzarella. We're cooking it again to get ricotta. And we are at 200 degrees. Turn the burner off. Put the lid on. And we're going to let it sit here for about an hour until it cools off. The mozzarella is actually in the refrigerator, chilling in some whey. I have the ricotta cheese on the stove, cooling. We have 25 minutes left on that, then we'll strain it. So this will be a perfect time for me to get some dishes done. Then we can make the filling for the ravioli once we get the ricotta cheese. The ricotta's been sitting for an hour in the sink. I have a bowl to collect any whey, the large strainer with the small strainer. And now we're just going to strain the ricotta cheese. I don't know if you can see that. Absolutely gorgeous. And I have a milk bag inside the small strainer to collect the curds for the ricotta cheese. I want to make sure I get all that goodness out of here. Very carefully remove the milk bag. Let it strain. And we're just going to let it hang right there until it stops dripping, and then our ricotta, it will be ready. As for the whey, I am going to put that in the plants outside. We have carrots growing. We did that last week so that we can give it some extra nutrients. So that's going to take about an hour or two. Now while we are waiting for the ricotta cheese to drain, I have this little wedge of Parmesan cheese. I'm going to go ahead and grate that. I'm going to use the small grate. This was just sitting in the refrigerator. We do have some in the freezer that is already grated, but for some reason I skipped one. And I just want to get it grated. Whatever we don't use in the ravioli, we'll just put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer. Just let me get all this grated. And then we're going to go ahead and grate our fresh mozzarella. So we have that little wedge of Parmesan grated. This is the fresh mozzarella we put in the refrigerator this morning. Fresh mozzarella does not grate the same as aged mozzarella, but that's what I like to use. And it helps me get rid of some milk and repurpose it. So I'm just going to grate it on the large grate holes. It's going to shred, but that's okay. I have the kitchen scale tiered out with a bowl, doing how much mozzarella we ended up with, 3 quarts of milk. Three quarts of milk turned into fresh mozzarella gave us 7 5/8 of an ounce. So a little bit more than 7.5 ounces, which is more than what we need, but that's okay. mozzarella, Parmesan cheese. The ricotta cheese is still straining. Once that's done, we can go ahead and start on our filling for the ravioli. I'm just going to put this in the refrigerator for right now. So before we get started on that ravioli, I'm going to need sweetened condensed milk for the pumpkin pie. We're going to make it ourselves. So I have 2 cups of milk. We're going to put just a pinch of salt. 3/4 cups of sugar. Whisk that sugar in. And we're going to heat that up very slow. I'm going to put it on a medium low. Keep an eye on it. And we're going to let that heat up and reduce and thicken. Because the pumpkin pie is going to need a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. That's not something I usually keep on hand. So we're going to make it ourselves. So now we're going to go ahead and start the pumpkin ravioli filling. We have the grated cheeses in the refrigerator. We have our ricotta cheese, which we still need to take out of the bag. Let's go ahead and get started. So this is the ricotta cheese. I had it hanging up for a couple hours. Then I put it in the refrigerator. Now we need to get it out of this bag. It's super cold. My goodness, it's like almost frozen. If I had to guess, I think I might have maybe a cup, which is going to be perfect for what we need. Got one of the pieces right here that did freeze up a bit. Right, I'm going to let that sit for about 15 minutes, let it come up to room temperature, and then we will move on and make our filling. But we cannot ignore this milk. So I'm going to use the 1.5 cup of our mixed pumpkin. This was the big pumpkin and the small light pumpkin. I went ahead and mixed up our spice blend. 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1 teaspoon of dried sage. Mix that in really well. I have a 1/2 cup of our fresh grated mozzarella, a 1/2 cup of the grated Parmesan, and our ricotta cheese, which is approximately 1 cup. Mix all of that together. We want to make sure we're not ignoring the milk. I do want to taste this filling to make sure it's the right amount of salt and pepper. My goodness. That is delicious. Oh, I'm excited. You can taste that sage, the pumpkin. Family. Now we need to work on the dough. So I'm just using the hand cranking pasta roller. I need to attach it to my countertop. I'm going to put our pumpkin ravioli mixture in the refrigerator until we're ready to assemble some raviolis. Oh no, my milk is coming up to a boil. We do not want that. We just want a light simmer going around this pan. I have it on super, super, super low. I have flour ready for us. I have the ravioli cutter. I want to put some flour on our bench. So as we're rolling the pasta, we got a place to put it. There we go. I got a container of flour right here. So here's the pasta we made together. I'm going to divide it into manageable sized pieces. Let's see if 6 will be enough. We don't want it too big, but we don't want them small either. Keep the dough wrapped up. I'm just trying to flatten it out so it'll fit in the pasta machine. You want to keep it well floured. So this is a hand cranker pasta machine. I have it on the largest setting. And we're going to be laminating it, so folding it up on itself. And we're going to do that 3 times. Now we're going to start stepping down until we get it to the thickness we want. I do want it just a little bit wider, so I'm going to laminate it, and I am on step 5. We go back to 5. Put some flour. Pop the bubble. Go back to the 4. Okay, we went all the way down to 1. Perfect. We got another piece of dough, and we're just going to repeat the process until we get all 6 of them rolled out very thin. So I have all 6 of those pieces rolled out. I'm going to take my ravioli cutter. I'm not cutting, I just want to make indents. So I know I can have 3 here. And that way I know where each one can go. You can barely see it, but it's there. So here's our filling. I'm just going to put a tablespoon in each one of these squares. Not even a tablespoon, maybe a half a tablespoon. Just to use it as a guide. Might even be a teaspoon. Let's say a teaspoon. I have a bowl with some water. I do want to paint so we can get a good seal on these raviolis. We're going to take another sheet of pasta, put it on top. Make sure we get them all nice and covered. Pushing down in between. And we're starting in the center and working our way out. Okay, I'm not going to be able to use these 2 at the end. Let me go ahead and pick those up. Then go back and hit the centers. And then on this side, now we're going to take our cutter. We're going to try our best to stay right in that center. Very slowly. Okay. Pick up anything that's extra. Now let's go the other way. That is extra. That did not cut. And we have a ravioli. Some of these have some blowouts. And I'm just placing them on a parchment paper lined baking sheet. I am putting some pressure on the cutter. And the whole time we were dealing with the ravioli pasta, the milk has been on the stove condensing, but it's ready. So we started off with 2 cups of milk, 3/4 cups of sugar, and we ended up with 1 cup of condensed milk. This needs to cool off before we make the pie. Perfect. Back to the raviolis. And repeat. Putting some flour down on my surface. I have another dough. So I found a better way on the third one. I like folding them in half, putting a nice crease right there. And then I put the filling on just half of it. And I'm not trying for 3s. I am only going to be doing 2s. So this is going to give me 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. And the other thing I do different is on the other half, I just paint the whole thing with water. And I fold it right where that crease is. Seal the end furthest from me. And then I go in with the back of my palm, my fingers, and divide it. And I go in the center. And then I do the edge closest to me. That seems to be giving me better results. Then I take my cutter, go right where I pressed, firm pressure. Remove any of the excess. Sometimes I have to go over it twice. And then I cut going the other way. Again, firm pressure. That one's got a blowout. It's okay. And if I see that they're not sealing, I'll just go back and give it a little pressure. There we go. Let me clean up my mess. This is all the excess dough, and it's been rolled too many times. I will not be able to get anything from this. And it's a waste, but that's okay. Looks like we have about a quarter cup of filling left. It's not really enough to do anything with. I am not going to throw it away. I'll find a use for it somewhere. I have the homemade sweetened condensed milk over here cooling off. I went ahead and took our pie crust out of the refrigerator, letting that come up to room temperature. And as for the raviolis, I like cooking raviolis when they're frozen and not fresh. So I'm just going to put this in the freezer till they get nice and hard. I ended up with 3 trays, about 24. So that's probably about 3 meals right there. Perfect. I'm going to put this in the freezer and let it get nice and hard. This is probably what we're going to have for dinner tonight. And I will share that recipe with you on Saturday. Our pie crust has come up to room temperature. Let's go ahead and make a pumpkin pie. So I have a standard size pie pan. Let's put some flour down on our bench or our countertop. You can see the butter in there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now we just want to roll this slowly, making sure everything stays well floured. Constantly keep our dough moving so it doesn't stick to our surface. Now this is a tapered rolling pin, so we want to make sure we're getting the edges as well as the center. Look how beautiful that pie crust is. Absolutely gorgeous. Now we want our pie crust to be bigger than our pie pan. Now if you see these little dark spots, that's actually my salt. Because it's not a white table salt, it's actually a pink salt, but it's Redmond's real salt. I get about 25 pounds from Azure Standard. That looks good to me. We're going to roll the pie crust around the rolling pin. Move our pie plate close to us and roll that pie crust over. There we go. So we're just going to pick up on the corners and let it drop down in that corner between the bottom and the side walls. I have some scissors. I'm going to go about 1/2 inch from the edge of the pie pan, and I'm just eyeballing that using my finger as a measure underneath. Then I'm going to pick up the pie crust and just pinch it under about 1/2 inch. And letting it sit right on the edge of this pie pan. And then I'm going to take 2 fingers, my thumb and pointer on one hand, my pointer on the other hand, and I'm just going to push the dough just like that. And that's going to give me my beautiful creases. And this is going to go into the refrigerator while we work on the pie filling. I have the oven preheating to 425 degrees because that's what we're going to start baking our pie on. So we have pumpkin pie spice, we have our homemade condensed milk, salt, eggs, and our pumpkin. And this is one of the small dark pumpkin that we cooked and pureed. Or you can just use a can of pumpkin if you like. To make sure we get all this goodness. Don't want to waste our hard work. This was 2 cups of pumpkin. Two teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I want to make sure that gets mixed in with the pumpkin before I add anything else. We have 2 eggs. Mix the eggs in. And our condensed milk that we made this morning. Let it cool off. I did put it in the refrigerator for about an hour. Not necessary, but I wasn't ready to make pie at that time. All right, let's mix that together. How simple was that? Our prepared pie crust. Put in that pie filling. Probably could have doubled this recipe because this is a deep dish pie, but that's okay. We'll know when we're ready to make our holiday pies. I'm going to put it on the pizza pan with some parchment paper. I don't think it's going to overflow or bake over, but that's just the way I bake my pies. Kind of wish I took out another thing of filling, but that's okay. In a 425 degree oven for 15 minutes. Then we're going to reduce the temperature to 350 and cook it for an additional 35-40 minutes. I'll bring you right back. We're going to have some pumpkin pie today, family. So I cooked it at 425 for 15 minutes, and I reduced it to 350 for 35 minutes, and we have 15 minutes left. But I don't want the crust to get too cooked. So I want to cover the crust. So I have strips of aluminum foil. Just want to cover it up a bit. Back in the oven for the remainder of 15 minutes. So the pie has been in the oven for 50 minutes. It is not ready. And so I just did a better job of my aluminum foil stripping to go around the crust. I'm going to put it back in the oven for another 15 minutes, and let's see if it's ready then. It still hasn't set. I'm going to put it in for another 15 minutes, and then I'll just continue until it's done. I believe we are done. Oven's off. Let me take my aluminum foil off. The crust did kind of topple in, but the pie itself lifted up. Absolutely gorgeous. And it smells delicious. We need to let this pie cool off completely before we cut into it. That's going to take about 2 hours. But that's okay. We can wait. I'll see you in 2 hours. The pumpkin pie has cooled. It did crack, but that's okay. If you know why it cracked, please tell me. We're going to go ahead and slice it. It has set up beautiful. Look at that, family. So we made the homemade sweetened condensed milk, homemade pie crust. We cooked our pumpkin. We did everything. Family. That is Thanksgiving worthy pumpkin pie. So creamy. It's not overly sweet, but it is really, really good. The raviolis are still in the freezer. I'm still waiting for those to firm up so I can get those in Ziploc bags. But I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of my family. Coming into my kitchen 3 times a week, watching my videos. It means so much to me. You have no idea how blessed I am to come into your home and invite you into my kitchen. It is so blessing. If you don't mind, give this video a thumbs up. While you're at it, please subscribe. I will love to have you part of the Grammy family. When those raviolis firm up, I'll get them in Ziploc bags and I'll insert a picture right here. And until next time, you have a blessed day and make some pumpkin pie. Oh, it's so good. Yep, we're having this for Thanksgiving. I always forget this. I don't like your view. Let me fix you. I don't know what I'm doing. Did you see that? Let me grab some eggs.